Parents of Reddit, what is the weirdest thing you caught your children doing? When my son was about 4, he was playing in his playroom. I was on the couch and heard some sounds behind me. It was just us. So I turn and see my son looking up at the light fixtures and whispering. I ask what he's doing. His response: "I'm asking all the light bulbs in the house to not fall and kill you. Thanks, son. He's truly got my back." My son licked my toe. I asked him what he was doing, and he said time traveling. He was 3. Found my kid talking to the hole in the sink when he was 2. Turns out that's where he said God lives. Carry on. Yeah, weirdo. Ex's eldest hoarded cardboard tubes. If asked, they were simply for later. The youngest adopted and formed a strong emotional bond with a garlic for about a week. Few years ago the cinnamon challenge was a thing. Walked in the door to my son with his head under the kitchen faucet gulping and spitting water. He accidentally grabbed the cumin instead of the cinnamon. When my son was about 3 years old, he liked to wash his eyebrows with my facial cleanser. Just the eyebrows. Wet. Lather. Rinse. Repeat. He said it made them nice and soft. My boys share a room. They were about 2 and 7 at the time, and I walked in their room and found them rocking on their hands and knees singing "We are the wee ina dogs." I have no ducking idea. Packing peas from our garden up her nose. This required a trip to the local hospital emergency room, where the doctor, a dad of several young children himself, thought it was hilariously funny. Soon my wife and I were laughing as well. Not my child, but I've caught my sister doing multiple strange things as a child. The 2 most notable were: I once caught her playing with a bag with yellowish liquid inside when she was 10. She had pulled this bag from the side of her backpack. I asked her what it was. It was her own pee. She had been keeping it in there for days, and once in a while she'd pull it out, go play with. I was horrified. When she was 8, she cut off her doll's hair, dismembered it, and gave it a funeral which she made all of us attend. She went to dig it up several days later, but it wasn't there. She's done many other things, but those were the 2 weirdest things she did. I woke up to my 5-year-old spraying Windex on the window beside my bed, cleaning it thoroughly, then nodding at me and moving on to cleaning the windows in the next room. I still don't know what the hell was happening. Edit. She told me before bed that it needed cleaned so her cat could look out. The bottom of the windows get smeared because the cats push their faces against it, so she wanted it cleaned for them. We caught my sons, maybe 6 and 3 at the time, both sitting on the toilet together, one behind the other, pooping. They told us it was a double poop. We forbid them from ever doing that again. Edit to add. For those of you who think we are terrible parents because we stopped our children from doing double poops, please know they seem to be well adjusted and appear to have no permanent damage from this incident. We have provided them with ample outlets for their creativity that do not involve poop. Caught my 2-year-old son licking the floor. He seemed really into it. My brother decided he wanted a pee hat, which is literally what it sounds like. A hat he could pee in during the night. While already a stupid idea, since he didn't empty it, he chose a plastic hat with hole in it. Edit. It was a toy construction hat with 2/4 holes in the top, meaning his makeshift toilet had 2/4 holes for the pee to leak from, and he was keeping it in his toy box. When my brother-in-law was 3, he was so obsessed with the toilet plunger they had to buy him his own, so he'd stop grabbing the used one. It was his best friend. My 5-year-old nephew went to feed the chickens yesterday. I told him to get a hat. He came back fully naked with gumboots and a straw hat on. Apparently the last time he went to the chicken house they pecked at his junk, and he wants to show them that it's not big enough to eat yet. Kids are weird. Packing turds into cardboard tubes with toilet paper and hiding them under the sink. She called them poop bombs. There was like 10 of them under there. Let's see. My daughter was drinking strawberry milk and then spitting it back into the cup so she could drink it again. I had hosed off a tarp and it was drying on the patio. We went outside and she just stooped down and took a drink out of a puddle on the top. Just today I was in the garage and she came out. Instantly grabbed a toothbrush I used to clean car parts and stuck it in her mouth. I don't even know anymore. My mom caught me bringing eggs from the kitchen into my room and sitting on them in a blanket nest, hoping they'd hatch. What she didn't catch was that I had been doing this for a while and would put the eggs back into the fridge when they wouldn't hatch after a few days. When my daughter was little, old ladies would come over and enthusiastically ask her simple questions, like what's your name? And she would always reply in flat monotone birthday cake. Then they'd ask another question like oh, well, how old are you? And she'd say birthday cake. They would look over at us with great concern. So annoying. I caught my twins in first grade measuring each other's penises with a tape measure they got to measure their heads in first grade for bike helmets. I walk in after their baths and one is on his back with his legs the air. Of course my husband said, that's not something you do until high school. I was the child. I was in my backyard and noticed there were a lot of slugs around since it had been raining. I was concerned that they had nowhere to go and they would be stuck outside where they would drown in the rain. So I went to the garage and got a bin and went around collecting every slug I could find. Then I got the idea to make it into a miniature city. I put in water, moss sticks, etc. And it became a project of mine that I maintained for weeks. Well, one day my mom walks outside for whatever reason and finds me holding a bin that's just full of slugs. She made me put them back and hose the bin down. I was pissed I lost all my hard work. When my son was 3 years old, we noticed the smell of burnt plastic coming from our heater vents. I called one of our friends that worked in heating and cooling, and he came over. Our furnace was in our crawl space, so he went down. About 15 minutes later, he asked me to hand him 3 black garbage bags through one of the vents, so I did so. He came up later with 3 bags of plastic toys. I had wondered where all my son's toys were going. I asked my son why he was putting toys down the vents. He said, "Mommy, there are alligators down there, and if I don't feed them my toys, they will eat my sister." I'm not a parent, but my niece was very upset that her older sister wouldn't turn the TV over when I was babysitting once. After about 10 minutes she pretended to be interested in the washing machine that was on at the time and sat in front of it and watched it like a TV. For an hour and 20 minutes. Her older sister watched the rest of her film, but obviously wasn't enjoying it. She was outraged that her little sister was having a great time watching wet clothes spin round and round. It's the most creative act of revenge I've ever seen. I saw my kid, who was 4, in the backyard looking for bugs or worms. He grabbed something and put it in his mouth. I asked him about a few minutes later. He said he ate a worm. I laughed and asked why. He said he wanted to know what it tasted like. So I asked what did it taste like. He said it tasted like mud. The next day I asked him if he really ate a worm. He replied yeah in the most defeated and embarrassed way any human could. Yeah live. Yeah learn a. 1. Coating himself and the entire bathroom in an entire, brand new, industrial sized garlic powder from Costco. 2. Having a snow day with his friends after unzipping the giant beanbag chair. A little girl I was babysitting was slowly stirring her bowl of chocolate ice cream into mush. I asked her what she was doing, and she replied very seriously, "I'm making poo-poo for God to put in people's bottoms." When my son was first learning to talk, my mom kept saying just wait until he learns to say no, like really building up the anticipation. Well, I opened my eyes one morning to my beloved child, 3 inches from my face, and staring at me. As soon as he sees I'm awake, he loudly and dramatically whispers no. I still feel like he was letting me know that whole phase had started. My youngest daughter was about 18 months old. She had, about a week before, discovered how to climb out of her own crib. Also, about a month before, she had once taken off her own diaper, not a repeat event, but a one-time thing. My Mill was visiting us, and we were all slow to wake up. Around 7:30, The baby monitor alerted me that my daughter was awake, but happy and content in her crib. I let my wife sleep in, and I grabbed a quick 5-minute shower before going to grab her. When I got there, she had put the two pieces, climb out of crib, and take off diaper, together, and use them to repaint her room. I will never recover from the trauma of the smell. Not yet a mother, but I'm the oldest of 4. When I was in high school I had a bathroom in my room. Very important to specify. It wasn't my bathroom. You just needed to go through my room to use it. That said, one day my youngest brother, probably around 6 at the time, was pooping and being young had no shame, so the door was wide open. I walk into my room to see he had taken all of the cardboard tampon applicators out of the trash can and bolt extended fingers with them. I could not stop laughing as I told him to take them off. My 3-year-old's first joke was, "Hey, look at my armpit," and she would point at her armpit and laugh. She would do this over and over. They warn you about first steps and first words, but first joke. I'm a proud dad. Edit. Thanks for the gold. I'll give my daughter a gold star tomorrow. I found my son and his cousin absolutely coated in calamine lotion. They'd obviously found it. Being 4 and 6 years old, they decided to do a bit of finger painting with it. I get that. But I don't entirely understand why his pants were off. Yes, his penis had calamine on it too. Being that it was the 90s, I do have a hilarious picture of them posing together with their Cali body art. Not a parent, but when I was younger I caught my sister crapting on the carpet. She hadn't had an accident and a little bit ended up on the carpet. She was full on crapting on the carpet. Needless to say my parents weren't too impressed. Not a parent, but my little sister used to do pretty weird stuff. She used to lay over the side of the couch, so her head was upside down, and drool spit down her face, until it filled her nose. She said that it would go through her nose back into her mouth like a circle. My oldest son was about 3 or so, and was using one of those play kitchens. He had a little pot on the stove iron. Since I wanted to be an engaged mother, I asked him what he was doing. "I'm cooking baby Jesus." He had indeed taken the baby Jesus figure out of one of my mother-in-law's nativity scenes, and had put him in the pot to cook. I used to sleepwalk when I was younger. I once walked downstairs and locked myself in a closet. My mom woke up to me screaming downstairs in the dark. I was like 4 years old. I threw up in the hallway once when I was a kid because I couldn't make it to the bathroom. I told my parents in the middle of the night and went back to bed. I was 4 at the time. I heard my dad say, "Did she say she threw up last night?" About a second later I heard him fall. He said, "Yep, and I just fell in it." Caught my 5-year son smashing his privates between the toilet lid and seat. Also have a 3-year son that needs an audience while he uses the bathroom and he'll often start laughing. BC he has no penis. BC he's pressing on it to try making it an innie. Kids are weird. Toddler was making soup in a kitchen pot. Comes up to me and says, "Taste. Mama. It's pea soup." And I take a pretend spoonful and say, "Yum. Tastes good." And then she goes, "Oh, I have to make more," and puts the pot on the floor and squats over it and pretends to pee in it while making a PSSSSHHH sound. Pee. It was pea soup. Upon hearing that my preteen daughter tried to escape home via her bedroom window, I spoke up to her. I showed her how easy it is to just walk out the front door. My mother was horrified at the many drawings of coffins floating down rivers I made for her in preschool. She literally cried at the thought her child could do something so morbid. I only drew them because my mom and I watched a magic show on TV a few weeks prior that was so cool to me at the time. The magician locked himself in a coffin and went over a waterfall and came out at the end perfectly unharmed. I didn't get why she was so upset at something so amazing. I'm 22 years old. She still tells this story to her friends. My mother caught me licking butter from the box. Still remember the look of absolute horror on her face. When I was 7 or 8, my mom gave me Benadryl before bed. Later when she went to the kitchen to get water, she heard this noise behind her. and found me standing, but naked on the couch. She put me back to bed. And all was fine. Until the next day, when she found I had also peed on the floor in the bathroom. My daughter had her door locked, which is odd. I gave her some privacy for a while, but then I got worried, so I made her open the door, and she was watching a political debate. She was 13. Edit. This was dial-up days, so probably not porn, lol. Don't have a kid, but apparently me and my sister were younger. We found some ashes and decided to pour them down the air vent on the floor. The ashes were my grandparents' pet dog. Kid 1. Teaching herself to knit. I awoke at 7:00 on a Saturday morning, and she had half a 3D bear knitted. We owned no knitting needles. She was 8. Kid 2. Eating inedible things. Examples. Lotion. Age 7. Silica packet bead. Age 16. No reason except curiosity. Caught the same kid rubbing her nose on her pancakes because it felt good. Kid 3. Headstands. Unassisted. Beginning at 11 months. I made the mistake of freaking out when I walked in and saw her in the crib with her feet in the air, and she thought it was hilarious. So she's continued to hone the skill. I know this is going to be hard to believe, but I caught my 14-year-old doing multivariable factoring in his bedroom. I thought he was sleeping. Completely caught me by surprise.